with my cold, so I am prepared. Either way, Dixie almost forgot one of the things she was going to say earlier. See, when you get over 50, you make little notes so you remember things. I want to remind everybody we have our little open door Christmas post office here. And there are cards here for about a dozen different people who haven't picked theirs up yet. So be sure to, because Christmas is Thursday. So I just want to remind you of that. I also want to echo what everyone else said about Dean's presentation this morning. We are so fortunate to have Dean in this fellowship. He not only is so knowledgeable about so many historic things, but his ability to present it. He's a natural storyteller. And, you know, every word is not only teaching us, but it's also very interesting, you know, the way you present. And, you know, I really believe there has to be some cosmic reason that this group of people is together. There's got to be some other reason than coincidence that we are together as a fellowship. Because we have so many talented people, musicians, leadership, you know, just a lot of reasons.
Remember,
and also,
Dean, it continues next Sunday.
Yes, and Dean continues next Sunday at 9 o'clock. So
I want to share, when I first met Dean some years ago, he said he was a historian. I thought, yeah, Dean, you're a historian. He is a historian. I owe you an apology, Dean.
I would say amateur historian, but serious one. Thanks a lot.
you know, often speakers will start out a talk with a joke, and I'm a terrible joke teller. I always ruin the punchline. But I've got a little bit of trivia. Dean mentioned that we really don't know the origins of so many of our traditions or celebrations for holidays. And how many, I know you all have heard this old English carol, God rest ye merry gentlemen. Everybody's heard of that? What does that mean? God rest ye merry gentlemen. Anybody got a clue? Well, the old English word for rest is keep. You know, just how you rest, you're keeping, and it really means God keep you merry, comma, gentlemen. It's not about merry gentlemen, it's about may God keep you joyful fellows. That would be, you know, a modern way of looking at it. But you know, I just love trivia. So let me see if I got everything on my list here I wanted to say before I start. Anyway, a couple Sundays ago when I was really in bed sick with the flu, and Dixie filled in for me, I had an Advent talk and planned this Christmas talk, so I kind of combined them. So, and I also wanted, I did forget to mention that Nita Kincaid slipped in here on us, and we didn't get a chance to say how good it is that you are here, Nita.
Thank you, Andy.
All around us we see most everyone in the midst of the annual siege we call getting ready for Christmas. And I thought Brad was going to steal my thunder there for a minute. I say the word siege because that is what it appears to me is happening everywhere I go. Whether it's at the grocery store where aisles are blocked by displays of seasonal food items, or the increase in vehicular traffic everywhere I need to go. At the mall and other retail at the mall and other retail outlets, frantic mothers and fathers are engaged in trying to find the items their children have requested before stores are all sold out. I would say for virtually all of us here today, none of us are old enough to remember a time when the Christmas season was less hectic or centered more on what has been called the reason for the season, namely the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. Phrases like, let's keep Christ in Christmas, are made by those who bemoan the reality that Christmas has become just another opportunity for retailers to make more money. Any of us who have had a background in one of the more liturgical Christian denominations, where Christmas is celebrated as much a religious holiday as it is or holy day as it is a secular holiday. You'll remember the time just prior to December 25th as the Advent season, which we have been celebrating here. A time to prepare one's self spiritually for the Christmas season. The more evangelical or fundamentalist Christian denominations have distanced themselves from such religious season, calling them too Catholic or unscriptural. And if you didn't know the difference in the word unscriptural or anti-scriptural, it's unscriptural to drive a car, because there's no reference of driving a car in the Bible, so it's unscriptural to drive, but it's not anti-scriptural. Anti-scriptural would be to murder, because that is in there. When I was a child and when my own children were little, Advent was an exciting 4-week period when the church we attended suspended a huge green wreath horizontally from the ceiling with ribbons in the sanctuary of the church, where 4 red candles were placed, similar to the Advent wreath here on our altar, but much larger. I would say it was probably 5 or 6 times the size of this wreath. The candles were all this size, and we had I don't know if you call it a cathedral size ceiling, but I mean it was pretty tall, and the ribbons came down, and that's because that's how the Germans celebrated Advent. Beginning with the first Sunday of Advent, a candle was lit ceremoniously and on each of the subsequent Sundays of Advent until all 4 candles were glowing brightly just days before December 25th. It's a fun custom for kids and a way children can mark the exciting time prior to Christmas Day. And it's interesting with our Advent candles how, and it's so true, we love fire, don't we? We love light, we love candles. And anytime George leaves the house for an extended period of time, he tells me I can't light candles or turn the stove on or do stuff like that, because sometimes I leave things going. But
your forgetter's getting longer.
my forgetter's getting better, and my remember's getting worse. But I think the Advent candles are in a way symbolic of Unitarians, because they're different heights. You know, because we're all on a path, but we're all on different paths. None of us are exactly the same. In the past, the Catholic Church considered the season of Advent one of the penitential seasons of the year, similar to the Lenten season, where one fasted or denied themselves of some pleasure. Nowadays, even Catholics consider the celebration of Advent as less being about doing penance and more a time of anticipation, anticipating the joys we all remember experiencing on Christmas morning. To better understand the present, let's turn the pages of history back 2,000 years and go to the tiny nation of Judea in the Middle East. A nation of people experiencing yet another period in its history when another powerful empire had conquered it and subjected it to foreign rule. Unless you've been a student of world history, you may not know that Palestine has been overrun at least 25 times in the past 3,000 years. That averages to about every 120 years that a conquering power has subdued it, about every 2 generations. Some of the more powerful conquering nations were the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, and finally the mighty Roman Empire. According to the Old Testament in the Jewish scripture, at the very beginning of the founding of the ancient nation of Israel, Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt in what we know as the Exodus, in about 1250 BCE. Under Joshua, they conquered the tribes and city-states of Canaan. And based on biblical tradition, it is estimated that King David conquered Jerusalem about 1,000 years before the birth of Christ, and established an Israelite kingdom over much of Canaan, including parts of Transjordan. Eventually, the kingdom was divided into Judea in the south and Israel in the north, following the death of David's son Solomon. Jerusalem remained the center of Jewish sovereignty over the country in the subsequent period, up to the Jewish revolt over 100 years after the lifetime of Jesus. Throughout these periods of national destruction, the Jewish nation longed for the coming of the great Messiah, a warrior king who was to return the nation to its most glorious period they experienced under the reign of the great King David. According to ancient prophecies, this Messiah figure was to be the descendant of Solomon in the line of King David. He will be well versed in Jewish law and observant of its commandments. He will be a great judge who will make righteous decisions. Tradition holds also that a Messiah is born in every generation, and whether or not his identity is revealed is dependent upon whether the world merits his coming. Moreover, the Messiah will bring about the political and spiritual redemption of the Jewish people by bringing them back to Israel and restoring Jerusalem. He will establish a government in Israel that will be the center of all world government, both for Jews and Gentiles. He will rebuild the temple and reestablish its worship and sacrifices. He will restore the religious court system of Israel and establish Jewish law as the law of the land. The coming of the Messiah is the longed for and anticipated hope of the Jewish people, especially the religiously observant. At the time of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, the Jewish people were once again subdued and were anxiously anticipating the birth of one who would defeat the mighty Roman Empire and lead them into a new messianic age. But keep in mind, there had been other men who claimed to be the Messiah, both before and after the lifetime of Jesus. During the years of Jesus' public ministry, he was often asked if he truly was the promised Messiah, or should they look for someone else? And of course, how very well we all know the rest of that story. Today we are bombarded on a daily basis with distressing news. The most recent has been the killing of innocent men, women, and children by the fundamentalist terrorist group ISIS. The public beheadings of Americans and other Westerners and the slaughter of nearly 150 school children just days ago have horrified us and made us so very aware of the evil that is in the world. And also in this country, the recent killing of black men by the police has resulted in much civil unrest. People often speak of how they believe the world is becoming more and more dangerous. But you know, the world has never been a peaceful place. Not since humans evolved and gathered themselves into families, clans, tribes, and eventually nations. The list of mankind's inhumanity to itself is endless. Now that I've painted a gloomy picture, I would ask you to not to forget for 1 minute all the good that humans have accomplished, both individually and collectively. The great advances we've made in modern medicine, in technology, and space travel is a testimony to the inherent goodness, worth, and dignity of every person. And while we still have much work to do, especially regarding equal pay and equal opportunities for women and other minorities, we are learning that we must be a people that sets the goal high in pursuing justice, equity, and humanity for all humankind. Yes, there is yet much to be done, but much good has also been accomplished. So Christmas is once again upon us. The time when women and men and girls and boys are full of joy and goodwill. The time that points us to that supposed messianic age I referred to. It's called the millennium, the 1,000-year period following the second advent or coming of Christ to the world, where Christ supposedly will rule a kingdom of kings and priests in a 1,000-year age of peace and prosperity. I used to believe in this theology that Jesus would someday return and save me and others from all the futuristic turmoil and distress we've all seen depicted in films and movies with futuristic themes. That if we are patient enough, one day all the wrong in the world will be made right. The high will be made low and the lowly will be exalted. While I may no longer believe in this literal future golden age, I do remain hopeful. I have hope that the world will one day be much improved. Maybe not a perfect world with a righteous and benevolent king, but one where nations learn to live in peace and where starvation and the lack of clean water is no longer a daily reality for so many hundreds of thousands. It's been said if we don't expect anything, we'll never be disappointed. But can you really imagine living your life that way? I can't. Being an optimist, I've never liked that statement. It seems so defeatist, so hopeless, so meaningless. Instead, I like to imagine and anticipate who the Messiahs will be that will enter my life and bring about positive change. Maybe not to the entire world, but personally in my life. Hopefully making me a better person. Do you ever think back and remember the time before you met your spouse when you wondered, maybe even dreamed about just who that future person might be? Or maybe before your first child was born, what your future sons and daughters might be like. And before that first grandchild was born, making you a grandma or grandpa for the very first time. We all have had people come into our lives, important people, even people who now may no longer be a part of our life due to death or other events, but still important to us in some way or another at a particular time in our life. I know you all know and have known people who are life-giving, people who bring out the best in us, people who make us feel happy and contented, people who bring joy into any situation. Again, who do you look for? What circumstances in your life make you hopeful? What kind of future do you anticipate for yourself? Of course, the answers are endless. Only please don't ever stop being hopeful. Don't let your expectations of life be diminished. Don't stop dreaming dreams for a bright and happy future. Let this season of Christmas energize you. Let it become a season of time when you begin to experience peace of mind, contentment, and joy. And who knows, maybe you will be someone's Messiah. That special someone who will make a difference in another person's life. Think of all the possibilities, all the endless opportunities waiting for you when you can do good things for others. This Christmas, celebrate all the good things of this holiday season and let compassion rather than consumption be your personal theme for a truly satisfying Christmas and a bright and happy New Year. Thank you, and I wish each of you much joy and happiness this Christmas and throughout the whole holiday season and throughout the new year.